Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about partial fraction decomposition, and we're just going to go ahead and keep it nice and simple, nice and easy, and we're going to be using linear factors. So just to kind of give you an introduction, we know how to solve this guy right here, right? This is our rational functions, rational expressions, and we know how to solve that. Well, now what we're going to do is they're going to give us this, and we're going to go back to this. Okay, so we're going to kind of decompose this guy, and we're going to get these fractions or these partial fractions. So the first thing we got to do is be able to factor the denominator if possible. Okay, so there are some instances where you can't, and we'll talk about those later. But we're going to keep it nice and simple this time. We're going to split the fraction, and then we're going to use the appropriate numerator factor given its denominator. And what I mean by that is, if you notice here an example, I gave you guys a linear factor, right? Notice how the bottom is a linear factor. On the top, it would be a constant. Okay, it would be a constant. Let me erase that. So this is what it would look like. Now on the bottom, if it's a quadratic factor, then on the top, you notice it is what? Ax plus b. Okay, so here you just have a constant, and here you have a linear factor. Okay, so these are the two that we'll be working on. And then of course it goes on so forth with a cubic, a quadratic, and so on and so forth. But for this video, we're just going to keep it nice and easy, just so if you need to review or you don't know how to do these at all. Okay, so we have this. We're going to go ahead and factor this guy. Okay, and when we factor it, okay, you guys should be able to factor x minus 3 and x plus 1. Okay, that's the first thing we have to do. So now let's go ahead and put this guy over here on the left. 6x minus 2. And then we have x minus 3 and x plus 1. Okay. And then you're going to have two fractions, right? Because you have the x minus 3 part. We'll call that a. And then you have another one. And you have the x plus 1 fraction. So we're going to go ahead and solve that. Now the essence is I can't solve for two unknowns at one time. So I'm going to solve one at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let, the first time, I'm going to let x equal positive 3 to cancel this guy out. But before, I got to go ahead and solve this. So what I'm going to do is what we do right in Algebra 1, Algebra 2. I'm going to multiply this whole thing by the common denominator. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do it quickly here, x plus 1. Okay, distribute that. So when I distribute, this guy's going to cancel out. You're going to be left with 6x minus 2. Distribute that, the x minus 3 simplify out, you're going to be left with a times x plus 1. And then the x plus 1 cancels out, you're going to be left with b times x minus 3. Okay? Great. And like we were saying, we can't solve two unknowns at one time. So what we're going to do is we're going to let x equal to first negative 1. So when x is negative 1, that's going to make this 0, and I'll be able to solve for b. So when x is negative 1, okay, negative 1 minus 2, a, negative 1 plus 1, plus b times negative 1 minus 3. And then we'll do some mental math. This is negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8. And then negative 1 plus 1 is 0, times a is 0. And then over here, negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4, so it's going to give me negative 4b. And then I can solve it. So when we solve this, we end up b is equal to positive 2. And there it is. Your value for b is 2. Okay, so now we're going to go do the exact same thing, but we're going to go ahead and do it for the value of a. Okay, so we're going to let x equal positive 3. Okay, so now let me rewrite it over here. Let's see. So we have 6x minus 2 is equal to a times x plus 1 plus b times x minus 3. All right, this time I'm going to let x equal to negative 3. Okay, that way I can go ahead and, let x equal positive 3. So that if I plug in 3 here, it makes it a 0. So if x is 3, so we have 6 times 3 minus 2, a, and then 3 plus 1, and then b, and then 3 minus 3 over here. Okay, so 6 times 3 is 18, minus 2 is 16. 3 plus 1 is 4 times a, and then 3 minus 3 is 0. So now I can solve this guy. So when I divide both sides, it's going to be a is equal to 4. And there it is, guys. So now the decomposition for this guy is going to be 2 over x minus 3 plus 4 over x plus 1. So this would be the original expression that would end up giving me this guy. And that's it, guys. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's see if we can do a few more here. All right. Let's see here. If we want to factor this guy, so what does that guy factor into? It's going to be x minus 5 and x minus 3. Okay, on the top is 14 minus 4x. So let's go over on this side, 14 minus 4x. We want to go ahead and put it over here on the bottom, break it apart. Okay, so we're going to have two factors. And the first one, we're going to say a is going to be x minus 5. And then we're going to have b and then x minus 3. We're going to do the same thing. Now, after a while, you kind of get the hang of it and you're able to do this in your head. But just as you're learning, just be careful. So x minus 5 and x minus 3. And I ran out of room, guys. I'm so sorry. So x minus 3. All right. Now, just be careful, okay? Now, remember, these are the easy ones. All right, so let's go ahead and finish it off. If I distribute this guy, you're just going to be left with 14 minus 4x equals the x minus 5's cancel. Actually, they don't cancel, they simplify each other out. Plus x minus 3 simplify out, and you're left with the b times the x minus 5. All right, we're going to go ahead and let's see here, let x equal to positive 3. Okay. So we have 14 minus 4x equals a, positive 3, plus b times positive 3 minus 5. And I forgot to put a 3 here, didn't I? Okay. So you can see the a is going to simplify out. You're not going to have a value for a. And then b, you're going to get negative 2. Let me just put 3 here. And then 14 minus 12 is 2. This becomes a 0. And then 3 minus 5 is negative 2, so negative 2b. Well, that's nice because b ends up equaling to negative 1. Nice. Okay. So that's b. Now what about the other one? Let's go back to here. Let's rewrite that one. Okay, nice and easy. 14 minus 4x equals a times x minus 3. Now this time I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to let x equal to positive 5. Okay. So I'm going to let x equal positive 5. So that way now the b constant can simplify out and I can solve for a. So let's go ahead and do that. 14 minus 4 times 5 equals a times 5 minus 3. And the b, 5 minus 5, that's going to simplify out. So 14 minus 20 is negative 6. 5 minus 3 is 2, so you get 2a. So that means a is equal to negative 3. Nice. So a equals negative 3, b equals negative 1. So my answer would be negative 3 over x minus... Now, got to be careful, guys, the way we write it. So a, where's a? A goes with the x minus 5, right? X minus 5. And b is my negative 1. And that goes with the x minus 3. And there it is. That's my solution, guys. All right, let's see if we can do 2 more. Number 3, factor this guy out. And this one looks kind of weird, but it's the same process. We factor out just an x, and then you get x minus 5 on the top. Leave it the same, 2x minus 30. Okay, so now we're going to get separated. Let me go ahead and do it over here. 2x minus 30 over x times x minus 5. Okay, and that's going to equal some constant a over the x plus some constant b over the x minus 5. Okay. Now from here, of course, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to cross multiply x minus 5. Okay. So what happens? All this simplifies out. You're left with 2x minus 30. The x's simplify out. You're left with a times x minus 5. And the last part, the x minus 5 simplify out, and you're left times b times x. This time we're going to let x equal to 0 first. Okay, so we're going to get 2 times 0 minus 30. is equal to a times 0 minus 5 plus b times 0. So you're going to get negative 30 is equal to negative 5a, and so a is going to equal to positive 6. Nice. And then we're going to do the second one, and same thing. Just rewrite it. 2x minus 30 is equal to a times x minus 5 plus bx, and this time we're going to let x equal to positive 5. So that a value can simplify out. So x is 5, so 2 times 5 minus 30, and then 5 minus 5 is 0, so that's good. And then 5, whoops, it's okay, 5b, if you notice here, right? So this becomes a 0. 2 times 5 is 10, minus 20 is minus 30 is negative 20. This becomes a 0. We're left with 5b, and b is equal to negative 4. Nice. So now your value for a, see a is over the x, so a is 6 over x plus negative 4 over the x minus 5. And there it is. And so you see that this is how it writes. The only thing is, I would say, just be careful, be careful which one goes with which, and then you'll be fine. But I think you get the hang of it. Just be careful because you can make little algebraic mistakes here, okay? Last one, I decided to make this a cubic, and it's okay. Let's go ahead and factor this out. And you have 9x squared minus 3x minus 18. If I factor that out, you're going to get x times x squared minus 9. And the x squared minus 9 becomes x minus 3, x plus 3. So first thing I did is I factored out the x. You're left with x squared minus 9, and that becomes a difference of perfect squares. So this one, you're actually going to have, I have 3. So you're going to have a over x plus b over x minus 3 and plus c over x plus 3. Okay. All right. So now, all right, we're going to go ahead and multiply everything out. Now we're going to do the same thing here, and let me go ahead and write it up here. X times x minus 3 times x plus 3. Okay. Sorry guys, ran out of room. So all of this is going to simplify out. You're just going to be left with that quadratic on the top. 9x squared minus 3x minus 18. All right, what's going to cancel out? Just the x's, and you're left with a times x minus 3 times x minus 3. Plus, one of the x minus 3 simplifies out, and you're going to be left with b times x plus 3. And the last one, you're going to be, the x plus 3 simplifies out, you're going to be left with these two, and you're going to be left with cx times x minus 3. All right, so then you do the same thing. We just take each one individually. Let's say the first one, we're going to let x equal to 0. Keep it simple for us. All right, so, and I'm just going to rewrite everything, guys. It becomes a little tedious after a while, but I think it's important. That way we don't make mistakes. Okay, so that's a 0 minus 3, 0 minus 3, plus b times 0 plus 3, and then c times 0 minus 3. So now that I substituted everything, I can do some mental math. So that's 0, 0, that's negative 18. Okay. And that's negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. 9 times a is 9a. And that gives me 0, 0 times anything is 0. 0 times anything is 0. So this one, a, is equal to negative 2. Nice. Okay, nice. So that's my first one. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Let me see here. And I'm going to keep it over here, okay? So I don't have to rewrite it. So now we first let x equal 0. And we're going to let x equal now. That's 0, we let it, right? Now we're going to make it, let x equal positive 3. So this can be 0. So let x equal positive 3. So we're going to do 3, right? X equals 3, 3 squared, minus 3 times 3, minus 18. And then we have a, and then 3 minus 3, 3 minus 3, plus b times 3 times 3 plus 3 plus c times 3, 3 minus 3. All right. A lot of threes. 3 squared is 9 times 9 is 81. 81 minus 9 is 81 minus 9 is 72. 72 minus 18. Okay. And then 3 minus 3 is 0, so all this becomes 0. And then 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18, so that becomes 18b. And then 3 minus 3 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0, so this whole thing becomes 0. So we end up with, let's see here, 18b is equal to what, that 54? Yep. And then b is equal to 3. Nice. All right. And then the last one, we're going to let x equal to negative 3. All right. So that way, if x is negative 3, okay, this guy becomes a 0. All right. Good. So let's go ahead and keep doing this one. So let x equal negative 3. So 9 times negative 3 squared minus 3 times negative 3 minus 18. And then we're going to have a times negative 3 minus 3, negative 3 minus another 3, plus b times negative 3 times negative 3 plus 3. And then the cx plus the c times negative 3 times negative 3 minus 3. Oof, a lot of negative 3's. All right. But you see what I'm doing? And basically, I want each one, okay, to become a 0. So I want 0, positive 3, and negative 3. All right, so let's do some math. Negative 3 squared is 9. 9 times 9 is 81. 81, this is plus 9. 81 plus 9 is 90. 90 take away 18. 90 take away 18, 72. Okay, so that's going to give me 72. Negative 3 and minus 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 times another negative 6 is 36. 36a. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. That's done. And then over here, negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 6 times negative 3 is negative 8, positive 18, 18c. Cool. Well, you're saying like, oh no, what happened? Something went wrong. All right. Well, if you notice, we got our A, we got our B. Now we're trying to find C, aren't we? All right. So we know that A is equal to negative 2, so we can just plug them in right there. Okay. So a little bit extra work, but we get 72 equals to 36 times negative 2 plus 18c. That's going to give you 72. 72 equals negative 72. Now be careful, it's not 0, okay? The 72 comes across, becomes another set positive. So that becomes 144. 144 is equal to 18c. All right, divide both sides by 18. And c is equal to, what is that? My math escapes me. That 6. Just making sure. 8. All right, sorry about that, guys. So we got 8. All right, good. So we have our A, we have our B, and then we have our C. So the last one, you can see how extensive it is, but not too difficult. Hopefully you get the idea. And then in future videos, we'll get a little bit more complex. So the answer for this one is, let's see here. Let me put it over here. Okay. So the answer is A. What's my A value? Negative 2 over x. What's my B value is 3 over x minus 3. And my C value is 8. 8 over x plus 3. And there it is, guys. There it is. Hopefully that helps, and see you guys next time.